Welcome to the Southbound Podcast. I'm your host today, Patrick Reed from Blue Water Civil Design. And today's guest we have with us is the CEO and President of Upstate Alliance, John Lummus. Thanks for being on today, John.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate y'all having me here today.
Yeah, this is great. I've always appreciated Upstate Alliance and what you guys do for our region. Tell us a little bit about what is Upstate Alliance.
Sure. The Upstate Alliance is the regional economic development group for the upstate 10 counties of South Carolina. And we also have 10 cities that are members of our group as well. We market the upstate to the world, and we try to find business that would want to come here. So we're recruiting, going after leads and prospects all the time. We focus a lot on international industry because we have had a lot of success, as a lot of people know, over the last 40 to 50 years in recruiting international business. We have 545 international companies here from 35 countries. And, everybody knows the big names, BMW, Michelin, Bosch, ZF, you go down the list, but, a lot of smaller companies as well have located here, a lot from Western Europe, Canada, and then domestically, companies in the Northeast, California, Detroit regions across the country. But, again, our focus is marketing and recruiting, but we also do a lot with collaboration between public and private sectors. In the upstate, we have 190 private sector members of our group, which people that are involved in the economic development process. And we are a public-private partnership. We've been around for 20 years, and our biggest constituency is our local economic developers, because we really try to go and find leads and prospects so they can land companies here.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And the public-private partnership is so important. We've had Nancy Whitworth on here. Right. She told us a little bit about some of that stuff, and it's sometimes the only way possible that where everyone gets the benefit in the end by having that kind of partnership. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about we talk a little bit about how you got to Upstate Alliance?
Yeah,
where did you grow up and where are you from? And all that stuff?
Well, I'm from Anderson, right down the road. Yeah. Grew up there, went to Teal-Hanna High School, graduated with radio.
Oh,
so
cool.
I was there. So great place to grow up. I was a kid in the 70s, and then up into the 80s, graduated from high school in 1983. So really, really good time to be a kid. I was reminiscing with one of my friends yesterday that, we grew up during the Evel Knievel era. So we were, jumping bicycles. Right. Nobody ever even heard of wearing a helmet on a bicycle.
That's right.
Just, having fun, making forts in the woods, things like that. So good childhood, played a lot of sports, played golf, played baseball, basketball. It was good, and graduated again from Teal-Hanna High School, and then went on to Wake Forest University, and then on from there.
Oh, awesome. So after Wake Forest, where did you kind of think you were going to go in your career?
Yeah, I was thinking about law school, worked for a law firm for a year in Charleston, and decided that I was really more interested in working in the political arena. Oh, wow. So was hired by Senator Hollings from South Carolina, went to D.C. and worked up there for a year, and I had a really interesting job. I would drive him to work and take him home in the afternoons or evenings. But also I worked in the office, and I got to work with grants and local communities. And that's when I really got interested in economic development. Yeah. I remember we had a group actually from Anderson County that came up, and I was in charge of arranging their meetings, and they were going to meet with, Senator Hollings and Senator Thurman and Congressman Derrick. And, I got to do all that. And I was like, wow, this is really a neat thing. Maybe this could be something I could do later on. And it worked out. Right. So how was that working for Senator Hollings and driving him,
driving around Washington? I'm sure he has some pretty good stories.
Yeah. Well, it's different than a lot of people think. A lot of people think, oh, well, were you driving a limousine? No, I was driving my 1986 Buick Regal. He sat right in the front seat right next to me, and he should have been of driving instructor rather than a U.S. senator, actually, because he would tell me, well, watch this. Well, you got to get over there. And I'm like, Senator, I've driven you in, for like 100 straight days. I know which exit to get off of. But anyway, it's very interesting. Funny. And I learned real quick, he would get in the car and he would open up the Washington Post and start quizzing me. Now, Lummus, did you know about, this? And I was, after like the second time he did, I was like, I got to get the Washington Post and start reading it before I picked him up.
Right.
So it was a very instructive learning situation. But, I was, 22, 23 years old. And at the time, and he was, 73 or 4. So it was very interesting having that relationship. He was absolutely hilarious, but he worked so hard that was a great learning experience for me.
Absolutely. I'm sure that had a big impact and big influence in your life.
Yeah.
So after you worked for Senator Hollings in D.C., where did you kind of end up next? Where'd you go next?
Well, after I'd been up there a year, I decided I wanted to get my master's degree. So I went back to University of South Carolina and got my master's in public administration and started focusing on local government. I had a real interest in local government work. So after I graduated, I went to work in Greenwood at Upper Savannah Council of Governments there. And in that job, I was basically a roving city and county administrator. So I had town of Calhoun Falls, town of Gray Court, town of Ware Shoals, and then I was the Abbeville County administrator as well for about a year and 3 months. So I would go to those locations one day a week and do their budgets and do their council meetings and take care of everything imaginable.
Right.
And it was a really interesting job, and I learned a lot because I was working not only in the government administration side, but I worked very closely with the city and county councils and learned, how to basically navigate that.
Right.
And navigating it by making mistakes, but
and those rural counties, sometimes just need some support, some help, and having someone to kind of come in and give them a focus for a month or a week or so.
Yeah. So at that point, I took that job when I was about 26 years old. So it was pretty interesting to be thrown in a county council meeting or a city council meeting or a budget meeting when you're going to raise taxes on people, and then they focus on you. So I learned quickly about that kind of thing.
How that works, yeah. So after doing that, where did you kind of go next?
Well, I went to the city of Goose Creek. They hired an assistant city manager and for economic development. So interestingly, that was right after the announcement of the base closure in Charleston. And everybody was anticipating that was going to be, the economy was just going to totally fall off. So they wanted to start, doing some proactive economic development there in the city of Goose Creek, which is just north of Charleston. But in reality, that's the best thing economically that ever happened to Charleston, because it took, that focus off all the people working in government jobs and things and opened up the workforce to the private sector. And since then, you've seen all this happen down there. Boeing and Mercedes and Volvo and all these incredible companies have been there. So, but I did that role for about 2 years. And then Senator Hollings' office contacted me, and they wanted me to come back to Greenville and run the Upstate offices at that time. We had one in Greenville and Spartanburg. So I did that and had a footprint of fairly similar to the Upstate Alliance, a couple extra counties. But so I did that, and I did constituent service for him. And whenever he traveled the Upstate, I was in charge of that. And then when the campaign came around in 1998, I helped with some of that in the Upstate. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So did Senator Hollings remember you? And obviously, you had an impact on him because he reached back to you and said, "Well, bring old Lummus back in
here. Yeah, bring Lummus back over here. Yeah, he's from Anniston. He knows all those people over there."
That's awesome. I love it. Well, that's pretty amazing, because you at 23 you went from kind of being low man on the totem pole to a couple of years later when he's campaigning, running for office or re-election, and he's like, "Well, I got some guys that work for me, and I know that they can do well." And that's so. In other words, it doesn't matter where you kind of land. Kind of grow a little bit where you're planted. I think that's very important. Someone told me that a long time ago. So after working for Senator Hollings, what was next for?
Well, I went to work. I decided I wanted to be a lobbyist, governmental affairs person. So I went to work for a telecom company that is still here in Greenville. It's called Windstream now. At the time it was called Trivergent Communications. And did that for about a year and a half. And then there was a lot of merging and things in that industry. So I moved out of that and actually worked in commercial real estate for about 2 years here in Greenville, kind of in between for Jackson Hughes Commercial Properties. And we developed buy low shopping centers and that. So that taught me a lot about, developing sites and,
the economic impact of the area.
Yeah, working with Department of Transportation, zoning groups, all those kind of things, and getting these stores built and up and running and then leased up in the shopping centers. That was a great experience for me. And then I went to Anderson County Economic Development. I became the director there. Oh, wow. And I was there for 4 years. And, in that role, recruiting industry, working with existing industry. And, that was a lot of fun. It was back in my hometown, which was very interesting to be back there. And, that can be tough, but, it was a great experience for me. Yeah. And I enjoyed it a lot.
That's awesome. Did you have any particular big projects come through when you were the director of economic development in Anderson?
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of activity there. A lot of new companies came in. We probably had about $700 million in new investment during those 4 years. And but I guess the most memorable project that I had and the largest was the Walgreens distribution center.
That's right.
That was looking for a southeast location. So they were looking at Anderson, and they were looking at North Georgia, a site down there. Yeah. So we started a really competitive.
What year was this again?
This was in 2003.
Okay,
it was when the process started. So started a very competitive process. Georgia is a very tough competitor in economic development. Their Department of Commerce, and so our Department of Commerce really jumped on board and really supported this project. So it was very interesting though, because about halfway through the process, their consultant called one morning. And they were going to be up there for a 12 o'clock lunch in my office to go over, some different things. And we were talking about a lot of different things. But anyway, he said, John, I got something I want to ask you. He said, this project is going to be interested in hiring a large number of their folks from the special needs community. And we really need to talk with some people there about this. It's going to be a distribution operation, and they're really interested in hiring from that population. And so I said, okay, yeah, sure, great. We'll take care of it. Got off the phone. I was like, what am I going to do?
Who are you going to call?
We're lucky that we've had an excellent operation there. The Disabilities and Special Needs Board Director was one of our good allies, as well as the South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation Director for the region. They had done projects with industries previously. So kind of got them on board and got them to come over and talked about, how they could do that. And Walgreens was very impressed really impressed by just their ability to create it. So
that's right. Yeah. Wow.
That was something that, we were able to figure out and make successful. But it was really interesting. I mentioned radio earlier. I was in high school with radio, of course, of the film. That was before he was famous, so he was just radio back then, and he would sit at the lunch table with us, and we just, it was great.
It was awesome.
But the vice president of logistics asked me, he said, do you know radio? I was like, well, yeah. He said, you think you could get him here, and meet with us and talk about what, and I was like, yeah.
Of course, yeah.
And
he's a shining star.
He was. So kind of full circle. So radio was someone that helped us with that recruiting process.
Of course he did, yeah.
I mean, but what it basically showed was that the Anderson community was very open and accepting of all populations. And that really helped in the thought process.
Yeah. So the distribution center was going to add how many jobs? And how many
700, 750 was that announcement.
Be?
I think it's more than that now, but they were saying 40% of the workforce would be from the special need population, which they've actually exceeded that over time, which is incredible.
That is incredible.
And they focused a lot on autistic individuals, and generally the unemployment rate amongst them is about 95%, which is, that's and this really opened up opportunities for both the people and their families for, given a real ability to do something great with their lives. So that Walgreens project was very interesting. But one funny story I'll tell about that. When their vice president of logistics, his name was Randy Lewis, just a great guy. Love that guy. And he still comes to the Upstate from time to time. He's retired now, but he called me and said, "Hey, John, I'm going to be coming down. It's the night before the groundbreaking." And I was like, "We're going to dinner, right?" I was like, yeah, we're going to go to dinner. I'll take you out on the lake and we'll go and eat somewhere. And he goes, "Well, I got an interesting question for you." He said, "Do you know where the Uptown Lounge is?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, sir. It's right across from my office. Know it well. Been there, before." He said, "Well, me and my wife are big dancers, and I want to learn how to shag, and I understand the Anderson Shag Club will be meeting that night, and and it turns out that's why he arranged the groundbreaking to be the next day, because they were going to be meeting." He had been in touch with him online. I was like, "Yes, sir."
Yes,
I was
sir.
like, "Well," he said, "after we eat dinner, can you take me down there?" I was like, "Yes, sir."
Of course. Got your dancing shoes.
So we went there, and he went and met these people in the club, and they did all this, and they taught him what to do. And anyway, so what I'm saying is economic development, it's never a dull moment, never a surprise as to what you might do.
I can put a top hat on and grab a cane and start dancing if you need me to. I'm not ashamed of it.
I just stood on the sidelines and watched. Anyway,
exactly.
Sometimes you never know.
I was telling somebody yesterday that they're invited. I got excluded from the list, not on purpose, but it just turned into a joke. And I said, "I dance at parties. You want me at this party?" So I laugh about that.
I don't.
Yeah, all jokes. So after economic development in Anderson, where did you go next?
Right.
What was next?
Well, I'd been there. I was there for 4 years, and the president at Tri-County Technical College, Dr. Ronnie Booth, he was opening up a position there for economic development and governmental affairs, which were two things I'd obviously always had a big interest in. So it was a vice president's role. So he recruited me to come there, took that job, and really worked with a lot of the same companies in Anderson County that I've been working with, but also in Oconee and Pickens. So I worked with the existing companies on their workforce. I was also over it's called corporate and community education. People know it as continuing education side, which is mostly industrial programs.
Right.
And I would go out and meet with the companies about their training needs. And also when we had prospects, that would come in, I would meet with them from those 3 counties and talk to them about Tri-County Tech and how we could help train their workforce. And then I also became the director of the foundation after a couple of years. So I had the fundraising part and then the economic development and governmental affairs part. So it was a great job. I really enjoyed it. And I was there for 8 years. And Dr. Booth he's really a mentor to me, and did, just basically his theory is just go do it. Just get it done.
Get it done.
Just get it done.
I like that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And you better get done right. That was kind of understood.
Definitely. So that was the last place you were before you joined Upstate Alliance, which was 7 years ago?
Yeah, 2014.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been there a little over 7 years.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Upstate Alliance and some future predictions and trends. Thank you so much.
Okay.
The Southbound Podcast is sponsored by Blue Water Civil Design. Blue Water Civil Design is a professional civil engineering firm located in Greenville, South Carolina, serving the southeastern United States and beyond. Started in 2010, the firm is bound together by 4 founding professional engineers with more than 100 years combined experience in all aspects of civil site work engineering, land planning, site selection, and analysis. For more information, please visit us at bluewatercivil.com. Welcome back to the Southbound Podcast. I'm Patrick Reed, here with John Lummus today, the president and CEO of Upstate Alliance. John's given us a little bit of an insight on what is Upstate Alliance and his early life and kind of what led him to land with the Upstate Alliance, and has been serving in this role for the past 7 years. John, thank you for being on again today. Tell us a little bit in the past 7 years, what all has grown in the Upstate Alliance, what all have y'all done, and some maybe new initiatives y'all.
Yeah, I mean, there's been constant growth. We're a manufacturing area. People know that we have about 2,000 manufacturers here in our region. 115,000 people working in manufacturing. So, I mean, we continue to be a really strong manufacturing region, a manufacturing exporting region. You look at BMW, they, make about 400,000 cars a year. They export 70% of those out to over 100 countries. So, I mean, we do that. We, with Michelin, with ZF, with all these other companies. I mean, we have large manufacturers, but we also have, smaller manufacturers all the way across the board. So, I mean, I think what we've seen, though, is that there has been some shifts in the type companies that are looking at us. Automotive continues to be very strong. We were looking at our announcements for this earlier this year, and still the greatest number of them were in the automotive area. But we've had a lot of newer, different type projects, life science projects that have started looking at us more as, we've gotten the med school up and running here in Greenville, and, with Prisma Health, and then some of the other hospital systems working with those. We also were seeing a lot more food and beverage projects looking at us now, and particularly after COVID. What we saw was that supply chains were disrupted. Everybody knows that they had a hard time getting toilet paper and chicken and all these different things, and the grocery stores were out of things. It's because supply chains, when they're trying to bring things in from overseas or places all over the country, these food and beverage companies have seen that they need to be near their markets or closer to their markets. And if you look at the position of the upstate, halfway between Charlotte and Atlanta, halfway between Miami and New York, right on the East Coast. We've got the Port of Charleston here. We've got the inland port facility in Greer, which has been a fantastic addition to us. I mean, we're in a great logistical position. I-85, I-26, CSX, Norfolk Southern Rail. And really now with GSP doing a lot more cargo, we're really a complete intermodal terminal here. So
becoming the hub.
We are. So we have trucking, rail, and air cargo. So I think those are some of the things we've seen more of. Aerospace continues to be pretty strong, and we've seen that strength. It went down a little bit over the last couple of years with the pandemic, but that's coming back now, particularly as Boeing and some of the other OEM aircraft manufacturers are ramping back up. So, I mean, I think the trend in the overall has been just continued growth, and also continued interest in people moving here. We have about 30 people a day on average that move to the upstate of South Carolina.
That's awesome.
And that is continuing, and I think we're getting stronger.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So when you guys you're not only just recruiting companies, but you're also recruiting workers and specialized. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, when any prospect that is worth working with is workforce is going to be their number one question. That's going to be the biggest thing that they're going to focus on. They're going to need to have their workforce in place to be successful. 75% of their costs on average are going to go to their personnel and their workforce, and they've got to make sure that they have skilled people to make their product or do the work. So we realized back in beginning of probably 2018 going into 2019 that we really, with 2%, 3% unemployment rates across our region, we really need to start looking at how we could recruit talent. So we started up an initiative called Move Up, which is a talent attraction, talent recruitment website, and connected with job
companies and
capabilities. We rolled that out in April of 2019, and basically what that does is it has quality of life information about all our communities and the upstate as a whole. And then it has a jobs board that's connected to Indeed with in-demand positions here. Wow. So someone can go on, put in that they would like to be a welder, and then they can find out all the welding jobs that they would have available. And we also have company websites on there. The largest employers and our investors are on that website, the actual links that people can go on. So started out as, talent attraction. We started a social media and digital marketing initiative to 10 geographies around the country. I won't name them all, but you can probably figure, Northeast California, Texas, anywhere that people are maybe going to be looking for new opportunities. And we also combine that again with the quality of life and then cost data on cost of housing, wages, things of that nature. Yeah. So as the pandemic hit, we started looking, March, April, we're like, whoa, unemployment rates are now at 12%. We don't really need to be focusing on recruiting talent right now. We need to focus a little more on helping those within the region.
Yes, just as important.
The underemployed and the unemployed. So what we did was we started Skill Up, which is part of Move Up, but what it does is it connects people within the region that are looking at specific jobs, connects them to what training and certifications are needed. We picked 15 different in-demand positions in the region, connected those with certificates at the technical and community colleges. So basically, if you go on there again and look for welder, you can find the jobs that will be listed, but also the training that you would need. And depending on which county you were in, it would connect you with that technical college and their website, talk about how you can, a lot of this is free now through different government programs and how those people can get to train to get to work.
That's fantastic.
So we rolled that out in October of 2020. And so we think that can make a dent in, some of the unemployment numbers and also help our companies to find employees.
Right. And I tie this back to your job previously serving as vice president at Tri-County Tech.
Right.
I mean, you really kind of gained a strong foundation on understanding of having the workforce ready, and that really kind of bolstered your position at Upstate Alliance. So you have that full understanding of that. That's awesome. So how about you tell us a little bit about when you guys are servicing around the upstate, but then when you guys go on missions and trips to other countries to go talk to other businesses around the world and stuff, and see how the Upstate Alliance can help them. Tell us a little bit about one of those trips and how rigorous they are.
Yeah, the process is, everyone thinks it's really glamorous. I mean, it's really cool to go to a lot of the places that we go to. We go to Germany a lot. We go to the UK, Ireland, Switzerland, places like that, which is really neat. But also it's a lot of work because number one, it's getting there is, now air travel, it's always, it's difficult, long flights, it's going to be a 10-hour flight to Germany, which, and then, when we get there, we're on the ground and traveling around from town to town and within the cities and probably meeting, having 4, 5, 8 meetings a day. And it's really fun though. And, I think the thing I like most about my job is, the challenge of going in, meeting with a company, particularly an international company, that you've obviously never met the people and done some background research on their company, but, going in, talking with them, getting a relationship, learning about their company, and then figuring out how we could help them and how we could bring them to the upstate and how we could connect, and kind of going through that whole puzzle during the midst of a maybe hour conversation and coming up with ways that we think that we could sell the upstate based on what they say. And one of the things that's really interesting I found is when you're trying to talk with these people, I found that the international language is soccer, or what you call football.
Of course,
for them, of course. So, if you feel like you're having a hard time talking with some of these folks, you'll go, well, what's your favorite football team? And then they kind of say, Dortmund. Dortmund. I say, Dortmund. Yeah, I know about them. They're generally, at the very top of the German league and all that, and you can really get sort of a conversation going. Yeah. But I've also learned a couple of things. Don't ever assume that you can figure out who they pull for because of where they live.
Oh, no.
I made that mistake one time and said, "Oh, you a Man U fan?" And he went,
"Why would you ask?"
City. And I was like, "Oh, sorry." So anyway, that was, kind of a faux pas.
Yeah.
And I also learned that, when you're talking to someone from Cologne, don't ever say anything good about Dusseldorf or back and forth because they don't like each other. That's an international language. Don't talk about how good the beer was in one of the places and they don't like that.
Right. Yeah.
So there are all these little interesting intricacies that you learn over time. But one of the coolest things in Europe that I've found in these meetings, they always bring you this great coffee and they'll bring you some kind of food into the meet. They don't ask you, just bring it in. They've got all these great sparkling waters and everything. So you actually, if you've been tromping around all day long, that's sometimes very welcomed.
Very needed.
And I love their coffee.
Yeah.
I always say the worst coffee in Europe is better than the best coffee in the United States.
Oh, yeah. I could agree with that. Yeah.
And that goes for beer too, by the way. But anyway.
Of course, yeah. I have a father-in-law that's
except for the beer made in the upstate. It's always better.
Yeah. RJ Rockers.
It's always better.
Right.
But yeah, and I think you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I think that one thing that I think Senator Hollings we could give a tribute to is him quizzing you with the Washington Post back in the day was training for you to say, all right, you need to go ahead and start reading up on stuff before you get it. Yeah.
And it is.
I think that's
always be prepared. Yeah. Always be early.
Right.
Just you got to work hard all day
that's
long.
Standard.
There's no, what's the Vince Lombardi quote? The only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. That's a great Vince Lombardi quote.
Yeah,
so,
I love that.
I think that's something that we can do. But during that recruiting process, it's another thing. Talking about the rigorousness, I was going to kind of talk about. A day that I remember in traveling, and one day we had landed in Krakow, Poland, at about 11 o'clock at night, had to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then we drove across Czechoslovakia, and we met with like 6 different companies, just boom, 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 a steel mill, an airplane company, a life science company, all the way across, ended up into Germany, met with maybe one more, and ended up in Munich that night at about 8 o'clock. And while it was beautiful driving, seeing Czechoslovakia, that was...
Right.
That's a day.
That's a day.
Again, so interesting because you get to talk with these people, and it's not called Czechoslovakia anymore. My apologies.
Czech Republic, right.
But getting to talk to all the different people and where they live, and some are city people, some are more in the rural areas. It's really interesting. I'm kind of figuring them out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and trying to help them imagine relocating to the upstate and bringing their business here. That's awesome, and that's fantastic. I'm so glad that So where did the idea of Upstate Alliance kind of come from? So it's 20, 21 years?
21 years.
So where does this kind of eventually say, hey, we need to kind of have something where we're all unified?
It really comes from some really visionary private sector leaders, really, at the time. Bill Workman, who was the mayor of Greenville, Irv Welling, Neil Workman, Charles Dalton, other people, just great leaders in the upstate of South Carolina that started saying, hey, we're not going to be successful doing economic development, doing it county by county, city by city, because in truth, and they knew this then, economic development doesn't recognize city lines, county lines, really even state lines. It's all about, a region working together. And in economic development literature, that they'll say that regions that of 1 million or more people that have a lot of similarities, particularly in their industry clusters, can market themselves so successfully and so much better than individual communities.
Yeah.
At the time, I think our population was about 1.2 million. It's about 1.5 now.
Wow.
And those private sector leaders got together with the idea of doing a regional economic development strategy and a marketing strategy. And then over the next couple of years, all 10 of the counties joined. And actually, when I got to Anderson, as the economic development director, Anderson County had not yet joined. There were several that had not joined, and that was one of my first things that I worked on to get us in. And I really used the the Upstate Alliance as my marketing,
right?
Because my entire marketing budget per year for trips, for anything that I did, was about $4,500 a year. That was what was in my budget.
Wow.
And there was no way that I could do that. I mean, I could go to maybe one trade show and be clueless. And later through the years, I found that the trade show itself is not where you're going to find the leads. But anyway, I didn't, so we worked with the Upstate Alliance, who understood how it worked and how you had to meet with, companies outside of trade shows and different CEOs and all these different folks. And so basically, I used them as my marketing arm, and really was successful doing that.
Yeah, and you think about economic development as a unified front, like BMW. I mean, that was a game changer.
That was the game changer.
Yeah, and then the inlet port. Yeah. It's just the stretch of its impact is kind of like almost hard to measure. Yeah. But it's not just one county. It's going to be several counties that are going to benefit.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's awesome. I really I've always appreciated y'all's hard work and dedication to bringing more jobs, building people from within, and recruiting people. Well, let's take a little bit of a turn here, and let's talk maybe about the future trends, the future of Southbound, so that we can kind of look at something and say, right now the times are good. What else is coming next? How do you feel about the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very optimistic person by nature, but I feel very optimistic. I mean, over the next 5, 10, 20 years, I mean, we're going to continue to grow. If you look at the census, I mean, we've been growing over 10% per decade. I see us growing even more, probably 15% per decade. And that's going to be a lot of it from people moving in. I mentioned earlier that we have about 30 people that move to the Upstate every day. And it's for a lot of reasons. Just personally, it's because people love our quality of life.
Right.
The beauty of the Upstate region, our accessibility, that you can get places easy from there. And that's
mountains,
on the individual. Mountains,
beach,
ocean,
3
everything.
hours. Yeah.
Big cities, if you want to go to Charlotte or Atlanta, and if you, you're right in the middle of those. But even more so from the business perspective, we're going to see more and more companies that want to come here. Post-COVID, people have been in California, people that have been in the Northeast, people that have been in the Midwest. I mean, they're really looking at our areas. I really like that place, and I'd really like to move my business there. So we're going to see more and more of that. I think some of the trends that we're seeing now is we've always been a manufacturing region, okay? And we are seeing more and more of these companies with technologies around manufacturing that want to be here. Like BMW has a lot of suppliers, but they also have a lot of groups that provide Internet of Things, different technologies that they have to do to be successful as a manufacturing operation. We're seeing more and more of that. And a lot of these are international companies, and we started a landing pad program about 5 years ago for these international companies that don't necessarily want to pick up and move their whole company or a huge manufacturing facility here. They just want to get a foothold in the Upstate, either through, or in the U.S., either through, a small manufacturing operation, a marketing operation, a sales operation, or just bringing some kind of technology and then hopefully bringing more. So we got a lot. We had about 15 of those over the last 4 years that have landed here. In different parts, of the Upstate, which has been very good. But I think technology-wise, we're going to see more and more on the electric vehicle side. We're already seeing a lot of that. I was in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and that was a lot of
EV talk.
EV. Yeah. And there are a lot of companies out there. There's some of them, like in anything, that are going to be speculative, looking for, funders and things like that. But there are also a lot that are well-funded and have already got contracts with BMW, Volvo, other OEMs. So I think that's going to continue to be big. But for those to be successful, we're going to have an infrastructure in place, because if I'm going to buy an electric vehicle, I got to know I can get it charged, and it can be done relatively quickly, and that I'm not going to be stuck on the side of the road somewhere without my battery, or I got to charge it for 8 hours. So we got to kind of figure that out, because it's been pushed a lot by the industry, rather than the consumer.
Right.
It's got to start being pushed by the consumer if it's going to really be successful.
Right.
So,
and then other places got to get caught up on the infrastructure if it's being pushed.
Oh, well, they do. I mean, nowhere is really great on it yet. And so that's one of the things. Another trend, I think, I mentioned food and beverage, but I think we're going to just continue to see more and more of that. Obviously, the fulfillment centers, as we're going more from, brick and mortar kind of retail to online retail,
right.
We're going to see a lot more of those, and we've got a lot of opportunities for that here.
Yeah.
So just lots of positive trends.
Right. It's exciting, and just drive around the upstate. We're not in Kansas anymore. It's changed in just the matter of a year. Every year there's something different. You see a new development, and it's exciting. And at the same time, I hope that we're doing things the right way. Tell us a little bit. I want to ask one other question about one of the things that I think that we all kind of always have to just put a reminder on is the balancing of the work and family life and the home life and stuff like that. It's so tough because I got little kids and they're all growing up, and I know your kids are grown up as well, but how did you do that? How did you juggle both the family life and the work life and keep a balance between the two? Yeah,
I mean, I really, it's hard sometimes, particularly when I have to travel, and that was, difficult when my kids were younger. But I mean, I really, I'd try to get all my work in by 5 o'clock and be able to go home, and because sporting events, my son played soccer since he was 4 years old, and baseball and football and basketball, everything. My daughter ran cross country and track and all these things. So I tried to make every one of those events that I could. And I think that's more important. The old kind of corny thing is you're never, when you're 85 years old, you're never going to say I work too much, You should have been with your family more.
Yeah,
so I think that is key. And I also see it with our employees, making sure they keep that work-life balance is important for their efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you work efficiently, you can get it done so you can leave by 5 o'clock. Now, if you have a meeting after work you got to go to, you can't do anything about that. But no, I think that's vitally important. I think employers now, particularly coming out of COVID, because people have been able to work from home, and you hear a lot of things and read a lot of things about people like working from home, and a lot of people are more efficient working from home than in an office environment. We have to be cognizant of those kind of things in our leadership roles moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe one last thing is I'll ask maybe if you could give our listeners maybe a little bit of advice, maybe a lesson learned from your very diverse background in history, and maybe share just tidbits of advice or something like that.
I mean, I've talked about this a couple of times, but there's no substitute for just work ethic and working hard and getting up and doing it every day. I mean, there's no real shortcuts on that kind of thing. I think that's important. The other thing I've learned is, just constantly building relationships, making relationships, being in any kind of situation where you can be in front of people as much as you possibly can. We've got people doing this, we've got people, but there's no substitute for being in front of somebody and talking to somebody.
Absolutely.
And, I encourage people to do that. I would say help other people too. I've learned one thing, a lot of people help me coming along, and, if people ask you, hey, I'm looking for a job, help those people, because,
absolutely.
It all kind of comes full circle, because you've got to try to help the next group coming through. Because literally, I mean, I wouldn't be where I was without, people, helping me, writing me recommendation letters,
absolutely.
Things of that nature. So that's something that's really important, is to look at the next generation and help the next group coming up. And that's a good thing to do personally, but that's also going to make our economy continue to be successful here, because the more successful people we have here, the more, we're going to have companies that are going to want to come here and hire them. So anyway.
I think we have a great culture. I think I feel like our upstate culture is very much like that, where we're taking care of each other and helping each other out.
So I think that's important. And I don't know, just from the leadership perspective, you got to learn every day. You don't know everything. So I learn something new every day about leading people, and just be open to learning every day. Read a lot. Try to read as much as I can every day. I read every news item, news article I possibly can. So anyway, that would be some of the things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And John,
you're welcome.
We're very appreciative to have you on today for the Southbound Podcast.
It's great.
I think you did a fantastic job in sharing your story and sharing the mission and message of Upstate Alliance.
Well, I applaud y'all too for doing this and bringing people on. And I'm humbled that I was asked to be here. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time. And
thank you, Patrick.
Everybody have a great week.